To start us off this morning, I'm doing something very unusual, a great guest, and that is a former Democrat congressman who has left the Democrat Party and is now actually campaigning with Mitt Romney and now self-describes as a Republican, and that is former Democrat congressman from Alabama, Artur Davis. And Congressman, you on the line with us, sir?
Chris, I'm on the line. Good to talk to you, and had the pleasure of watching you on Fox yesterday before we did our press conference in Arlington.
How'd I do?
Campaign.
How'd I do? Did I whoop her?
You did well, and something weird happened. We were talking about doing your show, talking about the time I was going to call in. We turn on the TV, and there you are. So I told the press guy, that's the one heck of a skill. If he can really perfect that, you know, forget politics. He was a heck of a lot of money. Mention the guy, turn on the TV, and there he is.
And that is amazing. I'm marveling myself. That's that's truly astonishing. Now, pardon me. Now, you're a former Democrat congressman from the 7th District in Alabama. You're a Harvard guy. You're a Harvard Law School guy, Harvard undergrad and Harvard Law School. And you were a rising star in the Democrat Party. Through 2008, through 2010, you were one of the speakers at the 2008 Democrat Convention. In fact, you were called upon to speak and to second the nomination of President Obama, who you obviously supported. I think you were the first congressman outside of Illinois to call for President Obama's nomination as the Democrat nominee. And then everything changed. What happened?
Well, probably the simplest way that I can describe this, I'm one of many people in 2007 and 2008 who really became invested in the Obama campaign because we bought into the idea that he meant it when he talked about the country coming together. We bought into the idea, frankly, that Barack Obama being elected would be a kind of redemptive moment for our country. And speaking for myself, I bought into the idea that Barack Obama was very much in the center mode of the Democratic Party, very much in the Clinton mode, despite the irony of the fact he was running against Hillary Clinton. Turns out 4 years later, we were wrong on virtually every front. Barack Obama has governed in a more ideological manner than any president in my lifetime. And that may push some people back when I say that, but I think if you make a rigorous analysis of the facts, and you look at the fact that the only president in my lifetime, I was born in 67, the only president in my lifetime who has never succeeded in making outreach to the opposing party on any single issue, it's Barack Obama. The other 7 of them figured out some way to do it. They figured out some way on important issues to build coalitions across party lines. The one president of the last 7 who's not figured it out at any point happens to be Barack Obama. So it's the opposite of the unity. It's the opposite of the hope and change. And, of course, if we had all the time in the world, we could get into the fact that this economy that the president planned to turn around is now, with 43 consecutive months, above 8% unemployment.
Yeah. Now, is it specifically the president that you're disappointed with, or has the party also left you?
No, my focus, frankly, is on the party and not just the president. Frankly, there are a lot of Democrats who aren't going to vote for Barack Obama. They're going to stay in the Democratic Party. There are always people who don't vote for their party's nominee but stay in that party. You don't leave a party, I think, simply because you're not going to vote for your guy for president again. In my case, though, I felt that the Democratic Party, across the board, on virtually every issue we're debating today, has moved in a direction which is narrower, which is more insular and less in touch with the American people than I've seen it in my lifetime. So I didn't like where the party was going, didn't like where the president was going, didn't like the results the president was getting, and that led me to begin to think of myself as a Republican, and earlier this year to announce that publicly, and now to become involved in helping the Romney campaign. Not in any ways that I think are terribly important. They have a lot of surrogates far more critical than me, but if I can help in some small little way, I'm certainly glad to do that.
Well, and now you're also going to be speaking at the Republican convention, too, right? That's kind of, I don't know if anyone has ever done that before, spoken at the convention of one party and then 4 years later spoken at the convention of another party. Are you aware of anyone else who's done that?
Well, I think Zell Miller did it. I think Zell Miller spoke with the Democratic convention in 2000. Of course, we know in New York spoke at the Republican convention in 2004. And Joe Lieberman, obviously, was nominated for vice president in 2000, spoke at the Democratic Convention in 2004, and then spoke at the Republican Convention.
All right.
So I don't have any claim to be making any kind of history. I'm just speaking at the convention is not something I asked to do. I was asked to do it, but I agreed to do it because I recognize that the 7 million people who voted for Barack Obama and who don't plan to do it again, based on the polling we have today, they don't have a prominent voice. A lot of them don't have a forum. A lot of them don't have a pulpit. So to the extent that I can speak for those people for just a few minutes in Tampa and maybe make the case to America about why that movement is happening, the campaign thought I could be helpful in that way. And I'm looking forward to being there and hearing people like Chris Christie and Marco Rubio, who are wonderful speakers. I'm looking forward to hearing them.
Do you believe that the Democratic Party, look, I was a Democrat. I was raised in a Democrat household myself. I grew up along the way, and, you know, this happens to a lot of us. And I often make the argument that today's Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party, certainly of John F. Kennedy or even of Bill Clinton. It's not the Democrat Party that my mother, you know, put signs on the roof of our car, humiliating us all, you know, for Abner Mikva and things like that. But is the Democrat Party the party of mainstream America in 2012?
The Democratic Party today is the party of specific interest groups. The Democratic Party is the party of its various clients, and that's the way they've chosen to organize themselves. They don't really focus on being a broad national party or a party that represents the broad national interests. They're a party that represents very aggressively the interests of its particular clients. But to your point, I absolutely agree with you that the Democratic Party today is not the one that your parents knew, not the one that I knew growing up. It's different from Bill Clinton's Democratic Party. Bill Clinton's Democratic Party changed welfare in this country by saying to people on welfare, we will help you in your time of need, but we're going to demand in return that you put skin in the game by working. And President Obama a few weeks ago breaks a bipartisan consensus behind welfare by saying, I'm now going to give states the authority to water down their work requirements, and then a few days later comes back and says, oh, well, we don't really think they'll use that authority. Then why give it to them? Why give them the authority to water down their work requirements if you don't want to water down work requirements? Robert Kennedy in 1968, or 1967 rather, famously said that the most despised institution in the inner city was the public school. And he went on to explain that was because many public schools in the inner city weren't delivering for the young boys and girls who were in those schools. And can you imagine if a Democrat today said the most despised institution in the inner city was a public school? He'd have to cut a hostage video like Cory Booker did and apologize by the end of the day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, this is a key source of funding, the teachers' unions. You know, Democrat Party bought and paid for all over the place, quite honestly, by special interests. And you know, what offends me profoundly is the building of race-based coalitions across the board and pitting groups in America against one another. I mean, it's the opposite of e pluribus unum. It is balkanization. We've seen time and again that doesn't work, and it's antithetical to the fundamental premise of the founding of the United States of America. Other than that, I think it's fine. And speaking of the racial polarization and the race-based coalitions, old lunch bucket Joe Biden was out there in Danville, Virginia, even though he thought he was in North Carolina, day before yesterday, talking about, you know, how Republicans are going to put y'all back in chains. And you're also African-American and, you know, have some experience with all of this. What do you think of Lunch Bucket Joe's, you know, put y'all back in chains thing day before yesterday?
I was very disappointed to see the vice president play those games. I grew up admiring Joe Biden. I remember when Joe Biden ran for president back in the late 80s and was a very inspirational speaker, and the people found he was giving other people speeches, but at one point he was a very inspirational speaker who moved me and moved a lot of people. And Joe Biden's signature message in 1986 and 87 when he was gearing up to run for president was how he wanted to bring the country together and move us past the lines of division that we had. It's so disappointing to see that guy that I admired 25 years later play those kinds of games in Danville, Virginia. Everyone knew what he meant when he turned to the black folks in the crowd and said they're going to put y'all back in chains. Interesting, he didn't say they're going to put us back in chains. It was y'all back in chains. The fact that he didn't include himself in the y'all tells you all you need to know about what he meant. And everybody in the room knew what he meant, and everybody knows what he meant by referring to chains. ultimately, our political leaders ought to be trying to bring us together and talk over our differences instead of talking about our differences.
Yeah, the president, has come out now in an interview with People magazine and backstopped Joe Biden on this, and said that he was making a point that the Republicans want to deregulate Wall Street, and that's all he was saying, essentially.
Well, when you turn to the crowd and you say they're going to put y'all back in chains, there were no Wall Street investors in that room. Yeah. It was Danville, North Carolina. It's kind of a long commute to get to Wall Street, even if you have a private plane. There were no investors in that room who could be put in regulatory chains or not put in regulatory chains. It's an incoherent point. I mean, what Biden has said he was trying to say, it would have been incoherent for him to make that point in that way to that group. So
well, what was the point?
Explain something that doesn't make sense is beyond me.
What was the point of his saying that, do you think?
Oh, I think he was just making a rhetorical play to the black folks in the room, candidly. I think he got a little bit fired up, and it was an aside. He probably didn't go in there meaning to say that. But the reason it's fair to call him out on it is because we have seen a pattern of the Obama campaign stirring up the pot. We've seen a pattern of the Obama campaign playing divisive politics. We've seen a pattern of the Obama campaign, frankly, using fear. I thought worse than what Biden did is some of the stuff you've seen launched at Paul Ryan in the last several days. This idea that you see from Democratic surrogates that Paul Ryan is going to throw people off Medicare. Anyone who knows anything about the Ryan plan, which certainly presumably includes the president and the vice president, knows that it only would apply to people in the next generation of welfare recipients under 54 years of age. If you're on Medicare now, or if you're over 55, you wouldn't be affected by anything like it or not like it.
And if you're under,
Ryan is talking about.
And if you're under 55, then actually you can stick with it as it is, or you have the option, so it creates an option for you, or you can choose not to exercise that option and just stick with the program as it is now. Now, excuse me, Congressman, I know that you've got to go. You're a busy guy right now, but you supported the president in 2008. You seconded his nomination at the convention. You obviously voted for him. Why should people who voted for President Obama in 2008 not vote for President Obama in 2012?
Very simple gut check. If you voted for Barack Obama in 2008, ask yourself, have you gotten what you voted for? Now, if you voted for 43 months of unemployment above 8%, if you voted for GDP growth as stagnant as it is, if you voted for recovery that stalled 3 times now, if you voted to have the most polarizing president since Richard Nixon, if you voted to have the most divisive politics in our country in 40 years, you got what you voted for. And if that's what you wanted, then you should vote for President Obama because he's delivered. Simple as that.
Simple as that. Former Congressman, former Democrat Artur Davis, thank you very kindly for joining us. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on today.
Well, you bet. Thanks. Do well. I'll look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.